Good morning. My name is Héctor Omi Martinez Rosado, Director of the Procurement Division for the Community Development Block Grant, Disaster Recovery and Mitigation Programs. In this pre-bid virtual conference, we'll be discussing the invitation for bid number CDBG-MIT-IFB-2026-02, Construction Services for the Social Interest Housing Mitigation Program, under the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation. Now I would like to introduce the Puerto Rico Department of Housing personnel. Along with me are Karen Canales Virriel, Procurement Official, Luis Santiago Ocasio, Technical Specialist, Yanis Ramos Denis, Technical Specialist, Julie Vasquez Otero from the Housing Division, and Erika Gavan Morales from the Federal Compliance Division. Any information provided in this meeting does not change the terms and conditions established in the invitation for bid instructions. This meeting will be recorded and available on the CDBG-DR YouTube channel. Regarding the procurement manual and contractual requirements, our procurement process shall be conducted in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the procurement manual for the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT programs to guarantee full and open competition and fair treatment for all persons of entities involved in each procurement process. The procurement manual is available on the CDBG-DR website as seen on the screen, incorporated by reference and made an integral part of this invitation for bid. Now we have a presentation from Julie Vasquez Otero from the Housing Division for an explanation of the scope of work. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Hector. Okay. As mentioned, we are going to present a virtual pre-bid conference identified as CDBG-MIT-IFB 2026-02 for Social Interest Housing Mitigation Project Construction Services. We are going to present a view of social interest housing mitigation and the information contained in the issue for bid. The Social Interest Housing Mitigation, SIHM or program provides funding to eligible entities that are committed to provide social housing and working with diverse population to ensure accessibility for individuals with a wide range of social, economic, physical, emotional, and other impairments. The SIHM program is intended to address the varying of localized needs for mitigation against a number of hazardous threats. The program's primary goal is to provide funding for eligible entities to expand existing housing options, increase the number of vulnerable persons served, and or bring existing housing to resilient, decent, safe, and sanitary conditions. PRDOH is issuing the issue for bid to procure construction services for rehabilitation projects to support the implementation of the program. The selected bidders are expected to strengthen the program by providing their experience, technical knowledge, and expertise for the successful implementation of the project. PRDOH anticipate awarding contracts for an initial term of 12 months with the option to extend the term upon mutual agreement. The period of performance for each project is 6 months upon environmental clearance and PRDOH notice to proceed. One or more qualified bidders may be contracted as a result of this issue for bid. General condition. This is the scope of work. General condition. The selected by bidders shall consider the uniform general conditions as part of the construction and contractual requirements for the implementation of the project and includes as attachment to the SOW and as the minimum performance requirements of the project. Scope of work. Schedule. The uniform general condition will include details regarding the pre-construction meetings, project construction schedule, progress meeting, breakdown for payment certification, submittal log, project closeout, and others. The existing condition. The selected bidders will be responsible for documenting with photographs the existing condition prior to initiation of the work and implementing work without affecting ongoing operations or interfering with residents. Under no circumstance may contracted work alter, affect, or invalidate guarantees of existing system, equipment, material, or any others. Warranty. The selected bidder shall grant all its products for the period established in the drawings and technical specifications from the date or acceptance of the products. Guarantee shall be in favor of a transferable to the project entity. Valid guarantee claims, defect, and others arising from work under contract shall be informed to the PRDOH and its representative and resolved with 2 weeks. Guarantee period, information, contact, and any other must be provided upon substantial completion. The project closeout. The selected bidders will provide all information required by the program as part of the project closeout requirements. This shall be elaborated and provided according to the necessary information for the PRDOH. This must be uploaded into the PRDOH grant management system or record and evaluated by the PRDOH and or its representative. Construction services. An architecture, engineering, and management firm has been contracted to provide design, management, and coordination among the stakeholders. The AE&M firm will be responsible for contract management administration, control, regulatory, and statutory compliance oversight. Designated inspectors, DI, have been contracted and will be responsible for all works and required by states, local requirements, and or requests by PRDOH. The selected bidders will be required to work in harmony with other stakeholders such as PRDOH, grant management, AE&M, DI, the representative, staff, and any other contractor retained by PRDOH for the implementation of the program. Duties and responsibilities. Obtain and evaluate copies of the 24 CFR 58 environmental review record information to implement contracted work. Obtain and secure any applicable permits, endorsements, certifications, and any other required to initiate and complete contract projects. Provide the corresponding permits and closeout permits for abatement, demolition, and construction activities when required. Perform asbestos containing materials, lead-based paint, materials abatement when required, permits and permits closeout included. Provide the highest level of service to the project, beneficiary, programs representative, and PRDOH. Responsible for project administration, production, and controls, including subcontractors management. All subcontractors performing abandonment, demolition, and any type of work or services will be managed, administered, and controlled by the contracted entities and provide the highest customer service standard. SIHM projects. The issue for bid includes 8 projects. The bidders must submit a bid covering the 8 projects collectively. Additionally, bidders must submit an individual cost form for each project as part of their bid. The peer DOH, at the sole discretion, may award a contract basis on the lowest total aggregate cost submitted for the 8 projects, regardless of the proposed individual project cost reasonable bid. All improvement must be in compliance with CDBG-MIT program guidelines and the working drawings and technical specifications included. We are going to present abuse of social interest housing mitigation and the information contained in the issue for bid. They are a project. The working drawing, specification, and documents related to each project are included as attachments to the scope of work. Project number 1 is SIH-MIT-0004, Vivienda Permanente La Caridad del Cristo, is located in Puerto Rico, 511, kilómetro 2.7 in the Coto Laurel Ward, municipality of Ponce. It's a existing multi-story residential complex consisting of affordable housing apartment units serving low-income households. Aims to improve the site infrastructure by construction systems that increase water storage, increase gas storage, and build a new PV system, photovoltaic system. The main components of the scope of work are listed below. That is water storage system, supply and install new system as definite in the drawings and specification, convert the existing water tank into a rainwater collection system. Number 2, gas storage system is supply and install new gas cylinders in accordance with the drawings and specification and build a new gas storage area. PV system, photovoltaic system, supply and install the PV system including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnected switches, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawings and specification, and conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performances. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnection approval with LUMA. All work must comply with ACT 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, state, and local regulation. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the permiso único incidental from the Oficina de Gerencia de Permisos. Second project, SIH-MIT-0006, Albergue Cristo Pobre, located in number 164 Calle Unión in the urban center, municipality of Ponce. This is an existing multi-story shelter facility consisting of residential and support spaces serving vulnerable and low-income individuals. Aims to improve the site infrastructure by constructing systems that increase water storage, increase gas storage, and build a new PV system. The main components of the scope of work are listed below. water storage system, supply and install new cistern and define in the drawings and specification. Gas storage system, supply and install new gas cylinders in accordance with the drawings and specification. PV system, supply and install the photovoltaic system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnect switches, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawing and specification. Conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performance. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnection approval with LUMA. All work must comply with ACT 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, state, and local regulations. The third project, SIH MIT-0094, Guarabí, Carib, is located in Calle Herbert Hoover in the urbanización José Mercado, municipality of Cagua. Consists of an existing one-story building serving vulnerable population. Aims to improve the building wind resistance by replacing doors, windows, and sunroof, as well as improving the site's infrastructure by constructing systems to increase water storage and building a new PV system. The main component of the scope of work is water storage systems, supply and install new system based on the drawings and specification, doors and windows, demolish and discard the existing doors and windows, supply and install new doors and windows in compliance with the drawings and specification, prepare and paint all the exterior and interior walls. Roof improvement. Improve roof framings in compliance with the drawings and specification. Build new roof in compliance with the drawings and specification. PV system. Supply and install the PV system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnected switch, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawing and technical specification. Conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performance. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnection approval with LUMA. All work must comply with AC 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, state, and local regulations. The other project is SIH MIT-0097, Guarabí, Caguas, located in Puerto Rico, 76th Street, kilometer 6.0 in the Borinquen Ward, municipality of Caguas, consists of two interconnected concrete buildings providing temporary and permanent shelter service for homeless individuals. Aims to improve the site's infrastructure by constructing systems to increase water storage, build a retaining wall, and implement a PV system. The main component of the scope of work are water storage systems, supply and install new cisterns based on the drawings and specification, retaining wall, build a new retaining wall in compliance with the drawings and specification, photovoltaic system, supply and install the photovoltaic system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnected switches, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawings and specification. Conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performance. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible to obtain the interconnections approval with LUMA. All work must be complied with Act 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, states, and local regulations. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the permiso único incidental from the Oficina de Gerencia de Permisos. Other project, SIH-MIT-0021, Site 1, is a rehabilitation of existing structure Site 1 in municipality of Vega Baja. Is an existing shelter facility for women consisting of a one-story concrete building with a corrugated metal roof and reinforced concrete roof sections. And to improve the building's wind resistance by replacing doors and windows and its energy resiliency by implementing a new PV system. The main component of the scope of work is doors and windows. Remove, dispose, and replace the existing doors and windows. Supply and install new doors and windows in compliance with the drawings and specification. Prepare and paint all the exterior and interior walls. PV system. Supply and install the PV system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnect switches, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawings and specification. Conduct commissioning and testing of the photovoltaic system to ensure optimal performance. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnection approval with LUMA. All work must comply with Act 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, state, and local regulation. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the permiso único incidental from the Oficina de Gerencia de Permisos. Asbesto mitigation. The selected bidders is responsible for the permitting, removal, and disposal of 1,900 square feet of asbestos in the roof membrane, as well as any closing of permitting documents related to the mitigation. The other project, SIH-MIT-0021, Site 2. The main components of the scope of work are doors and windows. Remove, dispose, and replace the existing doors and windows. Supply and install new doors and windows in compliance with the drawings and specification. Prepare and paint all exterior and interior walls. Photovoltaic system. Supply and install the photovoltaic system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnected switch, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawings and specification. Conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performance. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnections approval with LUMA. All work must comply with ACT 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, state, and local regulations. This is another project, SIH-MIT-0092. Rehabilitation of existing structure in municipality of Vega Alta consists of multi-building emergency shelter campus consisting of 4 concrete buildings with reinforced concrete roof operating as a shelter for women and their children affected by domestic violence. Aim to improve the site's infrastructure by constructing systems to increase water storage, improve wastewater disposal, and install a PV system. The main component of the scope of work are water storage, supply and install new systems based on the drawings and specification, wastewater system, demolish the existing wastewater pump station system, construct a new wastewater pump station in accordance with the drawings and specifications, photovoltaic systems, supply and install the photovoltaic system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnect switches, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawings and specification. conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performance. Permitting and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnections approval with LUMA. All work must comply with Act 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, state, and local regulations. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the permiso único incidental from the Oficina de Gerencia de Permisos. Another project, SIHM-IT-0041, Cooperativa de Vivienda de Titulares Jardines de Valencia, located at number 631, Calle Piñero, Leal, Municipality of San Juan. This is a multi-story building with 120 two-bedroom apartments and 116 three-bedroom apartments for low-income families, and to improve the site infrastructure by relocating the emergency generator unit, adoption of the existing access ramps to comply with ADA, modernization of an elevator, impermeabilization of the roof, providing high-speed internet, and building a new photovoltaic system. The main components of scope of work is ADA ramp improvement, selective demolition of existing concrete slab or stairs, selective demolition of green areas, selective coal milling of paved areas, construction of new ADA compliant ramps, reconstruction of impact sidewalk and green areas, pavement of impact parking area. All activities shall be in accordance with the drawings and specification. Emergency generation system. Demolition, removal, and disposal of existing emergency generator, supply and installation of a new emergency generator and all associated wiring in the exterior of the building as defined in the drawings and specification. Earthwork needed for construction of new concrete pad and construction of a new reinforced concrete pad. All activities shall be in accordance with the drawings and specification. The elevator system. Remove and dispose of one of the existing elevator mechanisms, supply and install all new elevator machinery in accordance with the drawings and specification. The high-speed internet system, we have to provide connections to one of the system providers already on site and wireless access point on all floors in accordance with drawings and specification. The roof implementation, we have to provide waterproofing treatment to roof in accordance with the drawing and specification. The photovoltaic system, supply and install the photovoltaic system, including all necessary components such as inverters, disconnected switches, and wiring, all in accordance with the drawings and specification. Conduct commissioning and testing of the PV system to ensure optimal performance. Permit and compliance. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the interconnection approval with LUMA. All work must comply with Act 17-2019, Ley de Política Pública Energética de Puerto Rico, and other relevant federal, states, and local regulation. The selected bidders is responsible for obtaining the permiso único incidental from the Oficina de Gerencia de Permisos. Owner special consideration. The issue for bid will include an attachment for each project with specific requirements that the selected bidders must adhere to throughout the duration of the project. Each project has a special consideration that the contractor must comply with regard to the following: security, property, time, Residence, general consideration. Order or precedence of contractual documents in the event of any conflict, discrepancy, or inconsistency among of the various documents comprising the contract. Cost form, total bid. The bidders must submit a bid covering the A project collectively. Additionally, bidders must submit an individual cost form for each project as part of their bid. The BRDOH, at its sole discretion, may award a contract based on the lowest total aggregate cost submitted for the A projects, regardless of the proposed individual project cost reasonable bid. Bidders must submit pricing for each individual project included in the solicitation. Failure to provide pricing for all projects will render the bid non-responsive. Additionally, to the cost provided in this cost form, bidder must complete the project detailed cost form of each bid item, respectively. This shall include the cost to all line items as described in each document. Bidders must complete a cost form for each project to be bid. Must provide a cost for each of the bid item included in the cost form. In the case of discrepancies between the quantities listed in the provided table and the quantity shown in the working drawings and specification, the quantities in the working drawings and specification shall take precedence. All equipment to be submitted with the bid must comply with the specification included in the scope of work, working drawings, and technical specification. All equipment offered as part of the bid, conditions set for the scope of work, working drawings, and technical specification. Pricing must include all expenses, including but not limited to incidental, overhead, profit, taxes, handling, and delivery costs, as well as any other administrative costs associated with the goods and services. Bidders shall visit the project to ensure that the conditions, dimensions, and details set for in the project scope, drawings, and its attachment are correct. If visible different condition and found, it is the bidder's responsibility to provide any material and perform any additional tasks required by the work. The intent of the scope of work and the working drawings and technical specification is to achieve the complete, finished, and ready to operate project. No advance payments will be disturbed for this work. This includes, but is not limited to, purchase of material on site, off-site, and or partially completed work. In case of discrepancy between the pricing detail table and the pricing summary table, then the sum of pricing detail items should govern. Quantities provided shall be verified by bidders. In case of discrepancy between the quantities in the tables provided and the working drawings and technical specification, then the working drawings and technical specification shall govern. BRDOH, at its sole discretion, may award the contract based on the lowest aggregate cost submitted for all projects, regardless of the cost proposed for any individual project. The issue for bid includes a separate cost form for each project detailing specific bid items unique to each project. This is an example of the individual cost form. Question, please submit and writing per issue for bid instruction. For information purpose only, this presentation does not modify any of the terms, conditions, and requirements set forth in the bid, issue for bid. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. My name is Karen Canales Virre, and I will be sharing information about the IFB documents acquisition along with the important dates for this IFB. The IFB documents are available for download on the Agilove platform. A link will be provided through the CDBG-DR and MIT website that will direct you to Agilove to access the documents related to this procurement process. Please note that you must register on the Agilove platform to download and review these documents and to submit your bid. To register, you must create an account by clicking Register. After completing all the required information for the bidding company, you will receive an email to complete your registration. If the validation email does not appear in your inbox, please check your junk or spam folder. To access the documents once registered, select all procurement processes as displayed on screen. This will direct you to another page where you can view all active procurement processes available on the platform. Select View for the applicable procurement process, and a new page will open with the details of the procurement process. It is important that you select I am interested and click Save so that you may subsequently submit your questions and your bid. The IFB package will be available under the Procurement Document section. Please note that once you have selected I am interested and clicked Save, you will be able to access the procurement process from the main menu under My Responses. Regarding the important dates for this IFB, the information is the following. Site visits to Ponce, Caguas, and San Juan will be held August 25 through August 27, 2026. Submission of questions and requests for clarifications September 4, 2026 at 4 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Responses to questions and requests for clarifications September 11, 2026. The bid due date will be October 2, 2026 at 12 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, and the virtual bid opening will be held on October 2, 2026 at 3 p.m. Detailed information regarding the site visits is displayed now on screen and is also provided in section 4.3 of the IFB instructions.
Thank you, Karen. My name is Luis Santiago Ocasio, and I will be discussing the submission of inquiries and addenda, as well as the electronic submission of bids. All potential bidders must submit all questions in writing no later than September 4, 2026 at 4 p.m. AST through the Agilove platform under the Question Submission section. When the question submission period is open, in accordance with the scheduled dates, the tab displayed on the screen will be enabled for submitting questions. You must then enter your question in the designated field, specify the section of the procurement package and the IFB page number to which your question refers, and then click the Submit button. Once submitted, your question will appear in the table titled My Questions, along with the date and time it was submitted. After the deadline for submitting questions has passed, the three fields and the button described above will no longer be visible. However, all questions previously submitted will remain visible in the My Questions table. Responses will be issued through an addendum to the procurement process and will be included under the Procurement Documents tab. All documents related to this procurement process, including any issued addenda, are and will continue to be available for download through the Agilove platform. All bidders are responsible for consulting the Agilove platform to download any addenda, if applicable, issued in connection with this procurement process. Electronic submission of bids. Bids must be submitted by the due date specified in section 4.3 of the IFB. Bids submitted after the established due date will not be accepted. Responses to this IFB will only be accepted electronically. Bidders are hereby advised that the Puerto Rico Department of Housing will only accept electronic submission of bids. Once the registration process has been completed through the ILOF platform, the bidder will be granted access to electronically submit its bid, as described herein. Access to the bid submission feature will be available from the date the procurement process is published through the scheduled closing date and time. Before submitting its bid, the bidder must complete all required fields and upload all required documents. Once uploaded, the documents will be displayed at the bottom of the page for review. It is important to note that for the bid to be considered, the bidder must click the Submit button after uploading all required documents. Bidders must ensure that all required documents are uploaded in the following three sections of the Submission tab. Submission requirements, also known as mandatory requirements, technical bid, also known as qualification and work approach, and price bid, also known as cost bid requirements. Bidders shall submit one bid covering all projects. Failure to do so will render the bid non-responsive.
Thank you, Luis. My name is Janice Ramos Denise, and I will be discussing the bid opening, as well as the evaluation criteria and bid evaluation, among others. The bid opening will be conducted virtually on October 2nd, 2026 at 3 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. If you're interested in participating, you may access the meeting through the link provided in the Agilov platform under the Details section. Bidders are reminded that they are responsible for monitoring the electronic bidding platform and their email accounts to obtain the meeting link. No award determination or award commitment will be made or announced at the bid opening. Evaluation criteria. The evaluation criteria for this IFB are as follows. Mandatory requirements. This IFB establishes a set of mandatory requirements which will be rated as pass or fail. Failure to comply with the mandatory requirements of this bid will result in the disqualification of the bidder. For further details about these mandatory requirements, bidders are instructed to refer to Section 6 of the IFB instructions. To name examples, some of these requirements include electronic submission of bids on its due date and on time, financial information, and the specifications of the scope of work. The information submitted will allow for a rating of pass or fail after an evaluation process by the PRDOH. B, cost proposal requirements. Price. The cost form will be submitted with the bidders using Exhibit H titled Cost Form. Now we move on to bid evaluation. After the bid opening, the CDBG-DR MIT's Procurement Division will evaluate each bid based on the mandatory and bid cost requirements explained in Section 6, 7, and the bid evaluation explained in Section 8 of the IFB instructions. The evaluation of the mandatory requirements will determine the responsible and responsive bidders who are capable of fulfilling the required goods and services. If a bidder is deemed responsible and responsive, the cost form will then be evaluated. The Procurement Division will also evaluate the service specifications submitted by the bidders in their bids to ensure they comply with the specifications established in the scope of work. The evaluation at the discretion of the Procurement Division of the PRDOH may be conducted by the user area within the PRDOH that requested this procurement process. Selection and award. If the bid is awarded, it will be granted to the responsible bidder who submits the responsive bid with the lowest cost. The award will be made solely based on fair and reasonable prices. The CDBG-DR MIT Procurement Division will recommend the award to the Department of Housing's bid board. The bid award will be issued by this same board. SAM registration. Bidders and first-tier subcontractors must be registered in the System for Award Management, also known as SAM, at the time of proposal submission or initiate the registration process immediately after submitting their proposal and obtain a unique entity identifier. For more information about the system for award management, please visit the SAM website. There is no fee to create, renew, or update your organization's information in SAM. Awards will be issued to entities that are authorized and not ineligible for contract awards due to suspension, debarment, or limited denial of participation imposed by HUD. Now we will leave you with Erika Caban Morales from the Federal Compliance Division, who will explain the federal compliance requirements. Thank you.
Good morning. This presentation summarizes the principal federal compliance requirements that may affect a construction procurement finance with CDBG-DR or CDBG mitigation funds. During this presentation, we will distinguish federal regulatory requirements from PRDOH policy tools, and we will identify which duties belong to the contractor, the recipient, or PRDOH. Preference for Section 3 and minority and women-owned business. This preference is not granted automatically. Respondents must claim it when submitting their documentation and provide sufficient evidence of eligibility. Section 3 business concerns may use PRDOH self-certification process. Minority and women-owned businesses must provide a current certification accepted by PRDOH. PRDOH will evaluate the documentation in accordance with the applicable procurement requirements. For the documentation of business status, you must complete current supporting documentation by the solicitation deadline. PRDOH does not certify a business merely because it claims to be a Section 3 business concern, MBE or WBE status. The Section 3 policy, it is the policy of PRDOH to require its recipients and their contractors and subcontractors, for the greatest extent feasible, to provide employment and training opportunities to low and very low income persons, particularly recipients of government assistance for housing and residence for the communities in which HUD financial assistance is expended. PRDOH also promotes contracting opportunities for eligible Section 3 business concerns in accordance with 24 CFR Part 75 and the applicable PRDOH policy. The PRDOH Section 3 policy, this policy extends Section 3 responsibilities throughout the contracting structure. So recipients must ensure that the applicable requirements are communicating to their contractors and subcontractors. Compliance involves identifying and documented employment, training, and contracting opportunities generated by the coveted financial assistance. These responsibilities must be incorporated into project planning and carried out throughout the applicable project period. For Section 3 benchmarks, these percentages are safe harbor benchmarks. Failure to meet them is not automatically a breach if the recipient, contractor, or subcontract documents qualitative efforts. The contractors must still perform and report the contractually required efforts. For the Section 3 plan, this tool assists in identifying new hiring and subcontracting needs, planning outreach efforts, and supporting coordinators in managing daily activities. Additionally, it helps define compliance procedures and provides guidance on reporting requirements. PRDOH implements this policy by extending the applicable Section 3 responsibilities throughout the contracting structure. To identify eligible participants, PRDOH uses self-certification. Individuals and business must complete the applicable PRDOH form and submit the required supporting documentations to be recognized as Section 3 workers, targeted Section 3 workers, or Section 3 business concerns. This documentation enables PRDOH to verify eligibility and accurately reports the economic opportunities generated by covered projects. Businesses are responsible for completing their own self-certification forms. Contractors and recipients support this process by informing potential vendors and subcontractors about the certification opportunity and I think we're up and running. Okay, let's continue here. Give me a moment. For minority and women businesses, this requirement focuses on providing meaningful consideration and access to contracting opportunities. It does not guarantee the award of a contract or require the selection of a particular business. Recipients and subrecipients must take the affirmative steps identified in the regulation. Prime contractors must apply the same requirements when seeking subcontractors. Accordingly, organizations should conduct outreach throughout the procurement process and retain evidence demonstrating the efforts undertaken. Our regulatory and policy framework, consistent with Executive Orders 11625, 12138, and 12432, 2 CFR 200.321, and the applicable PRDOH policy, recipients, subrecipients, contractors, and subcontractors must undertake and document good faith efforts to promote the participation of minority and women-owned businesses in applicable contracting opportunities. PRDO8 has established a combined MWBE participation goal of 20%, consistent of 10% participation by minority-owned businesses and 10% participation by women-owned businesses. These are participation goals established by PRDO8 policy. They are not federal mandated quotas. Contractors and recipients must undertake and document reasonable efforts to identify qualified businesses and provide them with meaningful opportunities to participate in contracting, subcontracting, and purchasing activities. If the goals are not achieved, the organization must maintain sufficient documentation demonstrating the good faith efforts undertaken and any barriers encountered. Business definitions: a firm must satisfy the applicable ownership, control, citizenship, residency, and certification requirements for the category claimed. One certification does not automatically establish another category. Businesses seeking recognition as minority business enterprises or women business enterprises must provide a current certification issued by the entity recognized under the applicable PRDOH policy. Example of available certification programs and business development resources are identified in this slide. It is important to clarify that PRDOH does not independently certify businesses as minority or women-owned. Each business is responsible for applying directly to an appropriate certifying entity and submitting its current certification to PRDOH as supporting documentation. PRDOH's role is limited to reviewing the documentation submitted to determine whether it satisfies the applicable policy and procurement requirements. Acceptance of a certification does not guarantee the award of a contract or subcontract. Quarterly compliance reporting. Compliance is an ongoing responsibility throughout the agreement or contract period. Accordingly, contractors and recipients should document their activities as they occur rather than waiting until the quarterly reporting deadline. The applicable efforts and results must be reported through the quarterly report. Each organization must also retain the supporting records used to prepare its submission, including evidence of outreach, contracting activities, participation, and any barriers encountered. These records must be maintained in accordance with the organization's document management, retention, administration, and accessibility requirements and made available to PRDH upon request. Use the current quarterly report link on our webpage and select the correct organization and enter the required project information and corresponding narrative for the applicable reporting period. Before submitting the report, verify that all information is complete and accurate. Supporting documentation demonstrating the report compliance efforts must also be submitted with the report, and copies must be retained in accordance with the organization's record-keeping requirements. So recipients, developers, and contractors must comply with mandatory quarterly reporting requirements. Reports are due on the 5th day of the month following the end of each calendar quarter. For civil rights and accessibility, civil rights obligations apply across program delivery, contracting, communications, and access, not only to housing unit decisions. The applicable protected class depends on the statute and activity. The practical rule is consistent. No exclusion, unequal treatment, retaliation, or discriminatory criteria in covered activities. Contractors must ensure that their policies, procedures, communications, and services do not exclude individuals, deny benefits, or otherwise discriminate on any basis protected under the applicable law. Questions concerning the appropriate legal authority or protected class should be referred to PRDH for guidance. The Fair Housing Act covers discrimination in the sale, rental, financing, and other housing-related activities within its scope. A variety of executive orders, laws, and statutes govern non-discrimination against protected classes, ensuring equal opportunity for individuals in accessing federally funded programs. These guides translate the legal requirements into PRDH procedures. The current guidance is available in English and Spanish. For fair housing and equal opportunity, contractors support PRDH by avoiding discriminatory practices, following approved procedures, documenting actions, and providing information needed for oversight. For reasonable accommodations and modifications are intended to ensure that individuals with disabilities have equal access to program benefits and services. Each request must be evaluated individually based on the person's disability-related need and the specific circumstances. Contractors should follow the applicable PRDH procedures, maintain the confidentiality of any disability-related information, and promptly refer requests to the appropriate program representative. A request should not be denied without completing the required evaluation, and when applicable, considering whether an effective alternative accommodations or modification is available. For language access is essential to ensuring meaningful participation in PRDH-funded programs and activities. A person should not be denied information, services, or program benefits because of a limited ability to communicate in English or Spanish. So recipients and contractors must follow the PRDH language access plan and provide appropriate language assistance when required. This may include qualified interpretation, translated vital documents, and notices information individuals that language assistance is available. Language assistance must be timely, accurate, and provided at no cost to the individual. Organizations must allow documents the assistant provided and maintain the corresponding records. For occupational safety and health, also known as OSH, safety compliance must be incorporated into project planning before construction begins and maintained throughout the performance of the work. This includes assigning qualified personnel, evaluating job site hazards, providing appropriate training and protective equipment, and contracting unsafe conditions promptly. The prime contractor must coordinate safety safety requirements across all subcontracting tiers. However, each employer remains responsible for the safety of its own workers. The PRDOH Occupational Safety and Health Policy provide a consistent framework for managing safety across CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT projects. It establishes expectations for planning, oversight, documentation, reporting, training, and corrective action. Review the policy before mobilization and build its documentation and reporting requirements into the site safety program. Policy implementation and compliance. Effective safety compliance requires continuous attention throughout the project and should be integrated into daily operations. Contractors must establish clear responsibilities, conduct regular job site inspections, and ensure that identified hazards are corrected promptly. Any finding of noncompliance should be documented together with the corresponding corrective action and follow-up verification. Repeated or unresolved deficiencies must be escalated through the appropriate project management and safety channels. These records demonstrate that safety requirements are being actively implemented rather than addressed only after an incident or monitoring visit. For subcontractor safety management, safety responsibilities extend to every subcontracting tier. The prime contractor must communicate the applicable requirements, coordinate activities among employers, and verify that subcontractors have completed the necessary orientations, training, and documentation before beginning work. Each subcontractor remains responsible for protecting its employees and complying with the safety requirements applicable to its work. The prime contractor coordination role does not transfer or eliminate that responsibility. Records or inspections, incidents, corrective actions, training, and subcontractors' oversight must be maintained and submitted to PRDOH when required. Safety documentation and reporting. Smart Sheets provide a centralized and accessible platform for tracking safety metrics, reporting incidents, and documenting safety practices in real time. This ensures that all safety-related data is consistently recorded, easily accessible for review, and can be swiftly communicated to relevant stakeholders. Proper use of Smart Sheets help maintain transparency, supports timely corrective actions, and facilitates ongoing monitoring to uphold safety standards across all construction projects. Submitting information through Smart Sheets does not replace any separate notification record keeping for reporting obligation required by OSHA, Puerto Rico OSHA, PRDOH policy, or the contract. For training and education are critical components of the PRDOH OSH policy. So recipients and contractors must ensure that all workers, including subcontractors, receive appropriate safety training relevant to their roles and responsibilities on the project. This includes initial safety orientations, as well as ongoing training sessions to keep workers updated on the latest safety protocols, procedures, and regulations. Training should cover specific OSHA requirements, hazard identification, proper use of personal protective equipment, emergency procedures, and any other relevant safety practices like preparation of job sites during hurricane season. It's important to ensure that training is accessible to all workers. This may require providing materials in both English and Spanish, depending on the workforce language needs. Proper training not only helps the prevention of accidents and injuries, but also empowers workers to contribute to safer work environment. Additionally, it resources the culture of safety that is vital for the successful completion of CDBG-DR or MIT-funded projects. By prioritizing training and education, so recipients and contractors can significantly reduce risk on site and ensure that all personnel are equipped to maintain high safety standards. For the monthly OSH Roundtable is a key component of our safety strategy. It serves as a vital forum where we can openly discuss any safety concerns, review recent incidents, and share best practices. This regular introduction helps ensure that all contractors and construction managers are on the same page regarding our OSH policy and procedures. By coordinating our efforts, we not only enhance safety compliance, but also create a safer work environment for everyone involved, leading to better project outcomes overall. For Davis-Bacon and related acts, also known as DEBRA, applicability is determined from the funding statute, the contract, and the work. Covered laborers and mechanics on the site of the work must receive at least the applicable prevailing wage and fringe benefits for the classification performed. Davis-Bacon compliance begins before construction starts. The applicable wage determination and labor standards provisions must be incorporated into the prime contract and all covered subcontractors. Once work begins, contractors and subcontractors must classify workers according to their duties they perform and pay no less than the applicable prevailing wage and fringe benefits. They must also submit and complete accurately certified payrolls for each week in which covered work is performed. The prime contractor is responsible for ensuring compliance throughout every subcontracting tier. PRDH and its recipients provide oversight through payroll reviews, workers, interviews, job site monitoring, and the resolution of any identified discrepancies. For labor standards administration, it requires timely cooperation from the recipients, contractors, and subcontractors. The PRDH guidance and applicable HUD handbook support the administration of these requirements. However, they must be applied together with the governing statutes, regulation, contracts, provisions, and wage determination. Maintaining complete and accurate documentation throughout the project helps prevent delay in payroll review, payment processing, and labor standards closeout. For Davis-Bacon related act, these authorities work together but establish different labor standards obligations. The Housing and Community Development Act extends prevailing wage requirements to covered CDBG funded construction. The Davis-Bacon Act establishes the prevailing wage and fringe benefits required for covered laborers and mechanics. The Copeland Anti-Kickback Act addresses improper wage deductions and requires the submission of weekly certified payroll information. The Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act establishes overtime requirements for covered contracts, while the Fair Labor Standards Act may impose separate minimum wage and overtime obligations. Because each law has its own scope and requirements, compliance with one does not necessarily establish compliance with the others. Davis-Bacon compliance extends through the entire project life cycle. It does not begin only when construction starts. During the bidding phase, the applicable wage determination and federal labor standards provision must be included in the procurement and contract documents. These requirements should also be discussed during the pre-bid and pre-construction meetings so that all the parties understand their responsibilities before work begins. During construction, compliance is monitored through certified payroll reviews, field interviews, and other supporting documentations. If discrepancies are identified, the prime contractor must be notified and given instruction regarding the required corrective action. Before closeout authorization is issued, all payroll reviews, findings, restitution matters, reports, and project files must be completed. For HUD 4010, Federal Labor Standards provisions, the principal message of this is that the HUD 4010 is a required contract document for covered construction. A general reference to Davis-Bacon compliance is not sufficient. The Federal Labor Standards provisions must be physically incorporated into the contract, together with the applicable wage determination. These requirements must also flow down through every covered subcontracting tier. Therefore, each covered subcontract must contain the applicable labor standards provisions and wage determination, not merely a statement requiring general compliance with federal law. The prime contractor is responsible for verifying that these documents are properly incorporated and for ensuring compliance by all subcontractors. This review should occur before subcontracted works begin. Davis-Bacon compliance requires coordinated action, but responsibilities differ depending on each party's role. Contractors and subcontractors must submit complete and accurate certified payrolls for every week in which covered work is performed. Worker classifications must reflect the duties performed, and the payroll must be accompanied by a signed statement of compliance. PRDH and its recipients are responsible for reviewing payrolls, conducting or coordinating worker interviews, identifying discrepancies, and monitoring corrective actions. Contractors must cooperate with these reviews and provide any additional records requested. The HUD 4710 is prepared and submitted by the responsible Labor Standards Agency. Contractors provide the project and payroll information necessary to support that report, but do not submit the report directly to HUD. All parties responsible must also participate in required training and maintain complete records throughout the project. The consequence of noncompliance depend on the nature, severity, and circumstances of the violation. They are not automatically imposed in every case. When underpayments are identified, sufficient contract funds may be withheld to cover unpaid wages and any applicable liquidated damages. Contractors may also be required to calculate and pay restitution to affect workers. More serious, repeated, or willful violations may result in contractor termination, administrative sanctions, debarment proceedings, or referral for civil or criminal enforcement. Knowingly submitting false payroll certification or payment claims may also create potential liability under the false claims. Contractors should address discrepancies promptly, cooperate with the review process, and provide documentation demonstrating that all required corrective actions have been completed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for participating in this pre-bid meeting. We appreciate your time. If you have any questions, feel free to communicate through our email address as seen on the screen. We wish you a great day. Thank you.